So it looks like we won't have to wait too long before some changes are made to adjust some of the issues that I had with the latest update 3.2. DICE announced today that they are releasing a hotfix update 3.2.1 next week to address a few of the problems brought about by update 3.2. Today I wanted to quickly run through what you can expect next week when the hotfix releases, and when we can expect the next update after this hotfix. Before I get into that, I wanted to thank you guys for the support on the latest videos. It seems like y'all are enjoying the format, so we're sticking with it here in this video as well. If you do enjoy this quick rundown, then be sure to hit like for me and subscribe to the channel for more of what I'm up to and seeing in the Battlefield community. We're getting closer to that 1,000 subscriber goal. Alright, let's dive into what was announced for the hotfix 3.2.1 next week. DICE starts off by letting us know that we are getting some changes to the new anti-vehicle gadgetry, the Javelin and the Tracer Dart. With update 3.2, the Tracer Dart and Javelin were a very deadly combination for squads to use to decimate enemy vehicles, namely because of some issues with the Tracer Dart itself. The Dart is essentially hit scan at the moment and it has little to no drop, so it's very easy to range across the map at enemy vehicles and get a hit for the Javelin to lock onto. This issue is then compounded by the fact that currently the Dart does not require line of sight to lock onto, so vehicles literally cannot escape using terrain once they've been tagged with one. DICE has announced for hotfix 3.2.1 that this dynamic is changing. The Javelin will no longer be able to lock while the Dart is out of sight. The Tracer Dart is being heavily nerfed from where it currently sits by adding drop to the projectile, reducing its speed from 500 meters per second to 250 meters per second, and drastically lowering the uptime from 40 seconds to just 12 seconds. This change means that the Dart will be much less effective at designating targets from distance unless you accurately account for the distance and drop. DICE mentions that SOFLAM is a viable alternative for more long-range vehicle painting. The next notable mention on the changelog addresses a complaint I mentioned in my Update 3.2 video regarding sprint to fire times for assault rifles being bugged at much larger values than intended. DICE say they are fixing the values but don't mention anything specific in the notes. However, Florian tweeted a few days ago that with Update 3.2, the sprint to fire time values for ARs were bugged at 250 milliseconds for exiting a normal sprint and a whopping 437 milliseconds for traversal sprint. He then mentions that the intended values are 167 milliseconds for normal sprint and 292 milliseconds for traversal sprint. So I would imagine this is what the values will return to with next week's hotfix. The next notable change in next week's hotfix relates to the ADS times when using extended or drum magazines on your weapons. With Update 3.2, DICE pulled an experiment on us and increased the ADS times for all larger capacity magazines without even really knowing if that was what they wanted to do, but decided to just try it. Needless to say, it's been a bit of a mess and really doesn't play well at all. Because of this, with next week's hotfix, DICE will be reverting that change for the time being, and I assume that larger capacity magazines will return to their pre-3.2 state. However, DICE still isn't done figuring out how to nerf them and says that more changes will come in a later date. Many players provided feedback stating that increasing the time it takes to reload or providing less overall ammo for extended magazines could be a viable alternative to nerf them a bit. DICE, however, does not believe that either of those, quote, compensate for the greater increase in combat uptime these attachments give you. So we'll just have to see how this extended mag debacle shakes out at a later date. For now, use them effectively while you still can. Finally, the last few changes I want to mention involve some buffs coming next week. We'll start with the specialist Crawford. Yep, that's right. Crawford is getting some buffs in next week's update. DICE is increasing the health of his Vulcan turret by 60%, and increasing the time it can fire before overheating to 7 seconds. One small nerf is that only one turret can be placed down instead of the 4 that you can apparently do now. I had no clue that was a thing. I've very rarely noticed it, but yeah, probably have it just be one turret from the start. The other buffs involve the new weapons introduced with Update 3.2, the MTAR-21 and the PP2000. The MTAR is getting some recoil changes that put it more in line with other weapons in the assault rifle category, as well as having its damage increased in the 40-meter range from 18 to 22 per bullet. The PP2000 is seeing similar damage increases, thank goodness, in the 50-meter range from 22 to 28 per bullet. The PP2000 is absolutely awful right now. I mean, horrendous, so these changes might actually make it viable to use starting next week. And that wraps up the most notable changes coming to Battlefield 2042 with next week's Hotfix 3.2.1. There are a few other minor changes to tweak things here and there, but I didn't mention them here because, for the most part, I don't see them being drastically noticeable, but they're good to have nonetheless. If you'd like to read the full notes, I'll have the link to them down in the description box. There isn't another update planned until the launch of Season 4 in a few weeks, so we'll have a little bit of time to simmer in whatever state the game is left in after next week's hotfix. What do you guys think of these changes? Is everyone going to become an extended mag-toting Crawford main now? Let me know in the comments below. I appreciate you guys watching the video, and I'll be sure to make more if I learn anything new. Until then, best of luck out there on the battlefield.